We are good to go. Alice, you're on mute.
Sounded really good, though. Good morning, everyone. Let's try that again. Welcome to the May 9th, 2024 Connecticut Paid Leave Board of Directors meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 9:02. And Amber, would you please take attendance?
Yes, thank you, Alice. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Ava Bermuda Zimmerman,
Present.
Isha Canada and Adrienne Cochran will not be joining us today, and Andrea Comer will be joining us. She had another 9 a.m., so she'll join us a little bit later. Sheila Hummel.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. Ellen McKitterick.
Present.
Fran will not be joining us today. Alice Pritchard.
Good morning. Yes, I'm present.
David Salazar Austin.
Present.
John Scott. Has John joined us yet?
I don't see him yet.
I don't believe John has joined us yet. I'll circle back in a moment. Mike Soltis.
Present.
Molly Weston Williamson will not be joining us today. Holly Williams. Holly, I know you've joined us. I just want to double check and make sure we still have you.
Oh, I'm here.
There
Can you
you
hear
are.
me?
Thanks so much.
Sorry.
Yes. Janae Woods Weber.
Present.
Good morning, Janae. And Justin Zartman.
Present.
Thank you. Okay.
Great.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amber. I'd also like to thank the members of the public for joining us today. Before we get started with the regular agenda, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our newest board member, David Salazar. David became a gubernatorial appointee as of April. He brings experience in the insurance industry from Travelers, where he currently serves as a senior council member. David, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. David will also be joining the Policy and Personnel Committee. We look forward to working with him there as well. So let me move on to the agenda. I'd like to ask for a review of the April 11th meeting minutes. Are there any corrections or discussion?
I'll
May
make
I have
a motion to approve.
Approve. Thank you, Justin. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wow. David, I'll let you.
Oh,
Thank you.
I abstain as well. I wasn't here.
Okay.
I also abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay. Ellen, Holly, and David all abstained. Thank you. All right. The motion carries. Thank you all very much. Dave, we're going to turn it over to you for a discussion regarding the draft budget for fiscal year 24-25.
Thank you very much, Alice. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to share my screen.
Hi, Dave. Right now we see your contribution budget.
Okay, excellent. Let's go to the first page. All right, so this way everyone can see it legibly. Okay, good morning, everybody. So we are going to discuss our proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. It is indeed that time of year again for those of you who have been through this before. If this is your first time, we will certainly walk you through how it works. So high level, our budget is made up of three segments. There is our operating budget, which covers the operating expenses of the authority to help it run and serve its mission. There is the bond budget, which budgets how much bond money we will request and use during the fiscal year, as well as our contribution budget, which budgets the money coming in, the contributions from the employees vis-a-vis the employers, to spend money on the benefits, which is the reason the program exists, and also the administration fees to service that as well. We're going to start with the operating budget. The operating budget revenue is $20,361,000. That is primarily made up of the administration fee to the Paid Leave Authority to run the program. A smaller amount of that is fund recovery penalties to help us fund the expenses for our fund recovery efforts to make sure all the contributions are coming in. The expenses for the upcoming fiscal year are budgeted in total at $18,445,000. And the categories for that are typical for what the authority has budgeted for and spent on in the past. Salaries and related benefit expenses, fringe benefits, including health insurance and things like that, and the pension expense for the employees. There's the contact center expense, which is our partners at United Way, which assist us with employer support in case they have any questions, giving them guidance on how to register and make contributions and things like that. IT support to run the various systems we have for collecting contributions and our website and things like that. Outreach and engagement, which is very important, making sure that the people of the state of Connecticut are aware of the program and how they can use it, and also outreach to employers so that make sure that they are aware that they have, if they have covered employees, that they have an obligation to pay into the program on behalf of their employees. We also have a grievance adjudication expense, which is the appeals work that our partners at DOL do for us. If anyone has any issues with decisions that were made regarding benefits being paid, they have the right to appeal. And so, like I mentioned, DOL helps us out with that. And we pay for that expense. Also, software licenses. We have quite a bit of software. We try and automate as much as we can. So we obviously have to pay a license expense for all that. So we have a budget line for that as well. Significant assumptions that we used for the operating budget. Like I mentioned, the administration fee revenue is going to be $20 million this year. That is consistent with prior years. So no change there. The fund recovery penalty is based on the historical trend. As you might remember, last year, we went live with, last year, about July, we went live with our fund recovery efforts. So we have about a year of history under our belts. So we use that to project going forward for the fund recovery efforts. On the expense side, salary expense includes increases of 2.5% for cost of living adjustment and 3% for annual increases. And those are made on July of 2024 and January of 2025, respectively. And that's based on the current contract that the state of Connecticut has, as well as the agreement that was just passed by the legislature with CBAC for the upcoming fiscal year. And these increases are consistent with prior year increases. So there wasn't any deviation there. The benefit rate that the authority is using is 84%. That's 24% for healthcare and other benefits, and 60% for the benefit obligation. That rate was based on what we're paying now. We did consult with the state to ask them if they have any insight into what the rate will be in the upcoming fiscal year. They haven't published anything officially yet, but they don't expect the rate to increase in the following year. So we're keeping the benefit rate consistent at what we're paying now. Our outreach efforts include a new initiative this year that we've discussed at prior board meetings, the Community Education Coordinator Initiative. So we've budgeted some extra money for that. And IT support includes various things that we do to keep the systems up and running, work on our platform, some work on claims analysis, maintaining and increasing our security to make sure the system is where it should be, some money for our continued fund recovery efforts to make sure that our employers are being compliant, so we maintain a fair and equitable playing field for all the employers, continued website maintenance for our new and improved website that recently came up, and also some money set aside for fund recovery development as well. I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes showing people how the current budget, which is on the left-hand side, compares to last year's budget, which is right next to it. And if you jump to the right between the two gray bars, the current projection we have for this current fiscal year, just to show how the numbers compare. So in terms of revenue, like I mentioned, it's going to be $20.3 million. That's about $339,000 compared to the prior year budget. And that's because of fund recovery. Our fund recovery efforts have been pretty successful. We have a track history now, so we're comfortable budgeting a number there. For the projection, it's $4.5 million higher. And that's because last year, as most of you will probably remember, we didn't transfer $5 million in the first quarter of the fiscal year because we had enough money in operating reserves. And the question did come up in the finance committee, hey, since that happened last year, and actually the year before that as well, do you anticipate that happening again? And do you really need $20 million as opposed to 15? And the short answer is yes, we do need the $20 million. We're not anticipating not transferring a quarter. And so here's the reason why. So our expenses in total for the budget are $18.4 million. That compares to $17.3 million, which is almost $1.2 million higher than last year's budget, which is a 6.7% increase. And so why are we budgeting more than last year? Well, payroll, pension, and benefits. Number one, those increases I just talked about will be in effect. And number two, we're going to have more people. By the end of the fiscal year 2025, we have budgeted 48 people. Last year's budget, it started at 42 and then ramped up to 46. So that's why we'll have over $700,000 more in payroll, pension, and benefits. Outreach and engagement is $405,000 higher. And that's because of the Community Education Coordinator Initiative. Now, on an annual basis, that initiative is $750,000, but we're not starting that July 1. That doesn't kick in until around October. So that's why it's only $405,000 for this fiscal year. IT consultant services are going up because we have fund recovery development work in there. There's rate increases, more work for security, and the other items I had discussed previously on the other slides. And that's why there's an increase of $644,000 in there. Software licenses are also going up. The biggest driver of that is our fund recovery efforts were so successful that we had to go up to a higher tier for our fund recovery license. And also, we are planning a Salesforce Community Cloud upgrade as well in the coming fiscal year. So that's also part of the $204,000 increase. We have some consultancy services of $120,000 this year. That is because of a request from the board to take a look and make sure that we have a plan in place so that I just lost the word. Erin, you'll have to help me with this. If you remember it.
Planning and just sort of right sizing of the senior staff.
Say again, please.
The succession planning.
Succession planning. Thank you. Thank you. So that is for succession planning. We want to have a succession plan in place. So we always have the right amount of people and the right people in there. So we are going to use an outside consultant to help us with that. So that's new this year. The contingency, we have a $250,000 contingency for what we don't know. So that's also consistent with prior year's budget. We did use a little of that last year, $9,000, when there were some scanning services that we needed that we hadn't budgeted for. But we keep that there just so we have the money and we don't have to come back and request a formal addition. But if there was a new line item needed for the budget from the contingency, we would follow the process and advise the board and ask for their approval for that. Those increases from the budget are offset by decreases in grievance adjudication of $860,000. The volume has been lower than we anticipated, that in part to the reconsideration efforts that the authority itself does with people who want us to revisit their benefit decisions. So that's been pretty successful. So we haven't nearly had as many people go through the appeals process as we did as this time last year. So we're lowering that estimate. And printing and postage is also lower than last year's budget because our fund recovery efforts, we budgeted very conservatively at that time. But it turned out we didn't need as much as we thought we did. And in terms of where the budget of $18.4 million compares to the $14.1 million, and that's a $4.3 million difference. So the biggest drivers of that are very similar to last year's budget. Again, the largest driver is payroll, pension, and benefits of $8.3 million. That's because positions are filled later than budgeted. It just historically takes longer, and IT positions in particular are still somewhat challenging to fill. So the positions get filled later than we budgeted. So that's why there's that variance. And that's the same reason that we've been discussing when we go over the financials monthly with the projection. Outreach and engagement, again, it's the same reason. It's the Community Education Coordinator Initiative. IT consultant services, again, it's the same reasons I discussed for the newer items. Same thing with software licenses and consultant services. Contingency, we're not projecting to use much of the contingency, so that's why that's there. And the grievance adjudication and the printing and postage pretty much fall in line with where we think we'll be at the end of the current fiscal year. So that's where the numbers for the current year operating budget come from and how they compare to last year's budget and last year's projection. And so the reason, I know that was a lot, but the reason I went through that was just to give everybody some perspective on where we are now. Let's move on to the bond budget. The bond budget, we are projecting to use $1.2 million of the $2.4 million we still have remaining of the bond funds that have been allocated but not used. We are not budgeting any additional allocations for this upcoming year because we have $2.4 million. So we're going to use those existing money for continued system enhancements. And those are to the our employee contribution platform, security improvements, fund recovery, the website, all the things I talked about before. Let's move on to the contribution budget. So the contribution budget, we are budgeting the following items this year. So contributions coming in are budgeted at $464.4 million. Fund recovery, we're anticipating $1.3 million of that. Investment income will be at 23.7. The money we're using, the claims and benefits that we're paying out is budgeted at 379.2. Claims and benefit administration expenses will be 25 million. The CTPL administration fee is 20 million. And the bond repayment for the bonds we already have out will be at $2.1 million. So the fund is expected to be at about $573.1 million when the fiscal year begins, and will end at $636.2 million by the end of the fiscal year. So what goes into those numbers? The contribution number of over $464 million, we worked in tandem with our actuaries at Spring to determine that. So that number includes a 4% salary growth over the prior fiscal year, as well as a projected change in unemployment. Unemployment is projected to go slightly up next year, but not so much so that it doesn't affect growth in contributions. Our fund recovery efforts, like I mentioned, are based on our historic collections since July of last year. And also, it's based on a 5% recovery amount for those amounts placed with a third-party debt collection vendor. And that's historically what debt collection vendors who collect on our kind of debt, which is state and federal, for that matter, government debt. And so their recovery rate has been 5%. So that's what we're using. Investment income is budgeted at 4%. We did consult with the Office of the Treasury and the Office of Policy and Management. They, with their own outside consultants, are expecting the rates to decrease during the fiscal year. We're currently earning at about 5.4%, but we're going to be conservative since they are expecting the rates to go down, and we're budgeting again at 4% like we did last year. In terms of the budget for expenses, benefits are based on the last actuarial projection we did for fiscal year 24, quarter 2. We are using an assumed incident rate of 4%. That's where our incident rate is at now. That incident rate has gone up slightly over the past fiscal year, from like about 3.9% to 4%. So since that rate has gone up, that's the rate we're going to be using for the upcoming budget. The benefit administrative fee that we pay to AFLAC, that's based on historical costs, and also allows for a price increase that the contract permits as of January of 2025. The Connecticut Paid Leave Administrative Fee is the same as the operating budget, so no surprises there. And the bond repayment is based on the terms that we set up last year with the Office of the Treasury, and those terms are for the bonds to be repaid over 10 years at a 3.5% semi-annual interest rate. So that calculation is set in stone, so that's the number we used for the budget. Again, just to show how this compares to last year's budget and projection, in total, the revenue we're budgeting is 489.4. Compared to last year's budget, that's over a $29 million increase. Why is it higher? Because we are expecting higher contributions based on the actuarial estimates. And those actuarial estimates are based on salary growth. We do budget somewhat conservatively when it comes to these things. But having said that, that's why the amount is higher. The investment income is higher by about $1.5 million. Why? You may ask if it was budgeted at the same rate as last year, 4%. Well, because the fund balance is higher, so we're earning interest on a higher amount. So that's why it's $1.5 million. Compared to the projection, it is about $13.7 million higher. Again, that's based on our actuarial estimates. There is a salary growth in there, again, somewhat offset by an increase in unemployment. But that's where we expect will be for this fiscal year, and that's why we bumped it up for next fiscal year. The $25 million that we have projected for investment income, that's actually $1.3 million higher than the budget. So why is the upcoming budget amount lower? Because it's a lower interest rate, budgeted at 4% compared to the roughly 5.4% that we're earning now. And in terms of benefit expense, again, we're budgeting $379.2 million. That is about $20.9 million lower than we budgeted last year. Again, we've got a whole nother year of experience under our belts, so we're better able to fine tune what we think the expenses will be. So that's why we revised the estimate, again, in tandem with our actuaries. And that's also, and it's higher than the projection, again, because our incident rate has gone up recently. So we are expecting to be paying more benefits next fiscal year as utilization of the program continues to increase and be successful. So that's why the benefit payments of $379.2 are higher than where we expect them to be this fiscal year of $362.9. And that's the biggest driver of why the total expenses are higher than the projection for this fiscal year, but also lower than last year's budget. Because again, last year's budget, we were budgeting very conservatively. So what do we do? So the goal of this was to review the budget with you and ask for your vote to approve it. This is all per the plan of operations that the authority has. If the board feels more time is needed or they would like to see any of the supporting documents that flow into this budget that the Finance Committee has seen and reviewed, then we would ask the board for a special meeting by May 31st to approve the budget, because the plan of operations requires it be done by May 31st, or the board, if it wishes to wait until the next regularly scheduled meeting on the 13th, has that option to do so. So that's our budget for the upcoming fiscal year. I know that was a lot, but it's important. So I like to spend at least a decent amount of time going over it with you all this morning. So at this point, I open the floor to any questions that the board may have regarding the budget.
Any questions? And I don't know if Aaron and or Holly, who chairs the Finance Committee, have any additional comments they want to make. And then I'll try your. Aaron's
No, I think Dave did a good job.
Okay.
I think Dave did a good job.
Very thorough.
Great. Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the budget?
So moved.
Thank you, Andrea. Also note that you're here. Thank you. Good morning. And can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Holly. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you so much, Dave and Aaron and the Finance Committee as well for the work you did to get us ready for today. Wonderful. Okay, we'll move on. Michael, I want to turn to you and ask if you could lead the discussion regarding the proposed revisions to the business travel and related expenses policy. Just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Over to you.
Thank you, Alice, and good morning, everyone. I think we actually might have to skip this topic for the same reason as last month. Just for sort of a recap, quasi-public agencies, we have this sort of two-tiered voting system that we use for general votes about normal topics. All we need is a quorum and a simple majority of the board members to vote in favor. But for officially adopted policies or procedures, the threshold is a bit higher, and Connecticut requires 2/3 of the voting members of the board to vote in favor. And that's 2/3 of the total, not necessarily 2/3 of the ones who are present in a meeting. So in our case, in order to adopt this policy, we would need to have 9 members approving the adoption. We also have 2 members of our board who are ex officio non-voting members, the ones appointed by the comptroller and treasurer. I believe that's Andrea and Janae. Love you both. We're so happy you're on the board, but I can't count your votes towards the 9 we need, unfortunately. So I think we have to table this for now. This is sort of my mistake. I realized about 5 minutes before the meeting, I wasn't planning on talking too much about the policy. We've discussed it a few times in previous board meetings, but David wasn't there for those meetings. So I sort of feel bad if I asked him to vote on this policy without sort of sharing details about what we were actually changing about the policy, especially if his vote is going to be sort of pivotal to passage. So I can take this month, share the details with David so he feels better about voting in for or against the policy. And fortunately, this policy doesn't really have any urgency behind it or need to adopt it now. So happy to push it into our June board meeting.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks for the reminder. It didn't all jive in my head until you just said that. So yes, we'll give you some quality time with David to walk through the policy, and we'll see it next month officially. Assuming we have the right number of people in the room. So let's get the right number of people in the room so we can move that policy forward. Great, thank you. Jessica, oh, there you are on my screen. Will you provide us with an outreach and engagement update, please?
Yes, absolutely. Can I please have screen sharing abilities, Amber?
I hear you, but I don't see you yet, so I'm trying to find you. Bear with me for just a second. I know she's here. Here you are. All right, Jess, you're all set.
Thank you. Okay, love confirmation. Thank you, Amber. All right, so I have actually a few new pieces of creative that I want to share with you. So the first one is a video created by a small business owner here in Connecticut, Lori Supernaut. She is one of the co-owners of Leaps and Bones, which is a dog bakery and pet supply store with a few locations here in Connecticut. Some of you may be familiar with her name or the business name. She has been a great asset to us, an advocate, and participated in our Women's Day event back in March. And I would like to play for you her testimonial video. She had an employee who actually used paid leave to be a caregiver. And here we go.
The biggest thing about the Connecticut Paid Leave Act from an organizational side was not only...
Are you guys hearing it? You are. Okay, it's got to be my AirPods then. Sorry about that. Let me start it again.
The biggest thing about the Connecticut Paid Leave Act from an organizational side was not only ease of use, but peace of mind for the employee. We had an employee, her loved one was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and she was the primary caretaker. She contacted Paid Leave, they opened a case, and it was 3 emails back and forth for myself, no administration at all, and she had her paid leave. If you're not treating your employees well, your turnover is going to cost you more as a company per year, retraining staff, continuously recruiting people, rather than saying to people, I'm offering you a package that will give you peace of mind if something happens. If you want your employees to be productive, you need to give them reasons to want to be there and be productive.
So that was a slightly longer version that we created to share on our website, but we do have more abbreviated versions that will be used for our social media, particularly LinkedIn for our business to business campaign, as well as other B2B initiatives. Now, the next one I want to play for you is a new sort of compilation video featuring different individuals and families who have used our program. We really created it because we wanted to showcase the diversity of the state's workforce and of the individuals who have benefited from our program. And so I'm going to play the version with an English voiceover, but we do also have a Spanish voiceover for this. And this video is going to be used broadly across our television campaigns, our radio campaigns, and also our digital campaigns.
When loved ones need you, you do whatever it takes to be there. CT Paid Leave offers flexibility to keep up with life's changes with income replacement benefits if you're out of work to care for a loved one, welcome a new child, or address your own health challenges without worrying about how to pay the bills. CT Paid Leave means workers have the ability to focus on their health and their loved ones. CT Paid Leave means stronger families and a stronger workforce. Learn more at ctpaidleave.org.
So those are our two newest pieces of creative. Hopefully you'll catch them on a media channel near you soon. I'm not going to play this, even though I teased Erin that I was going to, but we had a great collaboration with Treasurer Eric Russell's office. And Erin and the treasurer did a Facebook Live on April 30th, and the theme of it was setting Connecticut families up for success. Talking about how our two programs, Connecticut Paid Leave and Baby Bonds, really strive from even before someone begins their family to give individuals the tools that they need to be successful. So they had a great conversation, about 15 minutes in length. It is pinned on our Facebook page if you would like to go watch it. And Treasurer Russell will also be participating in a longer conversation with Nancy in the summer to elaborate more on the Baby Bonds program. And again, talk about this intersection of our two programs and what they're doing for families in Connecticut. So we're very grateful for that collaboration. And thank you to Andrea Comer for helping us set everything up. I also wanted to mention another new partnership. You've heard me talk about some of the work that we're doing with some different publications to reach the non-English speaking audiences in Connecticut, including La Tribuna, La Visión, and the White Eagle publications. So we have also entered into a partnership with La Voz Hispana, where we are doing something similar in that we will have an ad campaign, but we'll also have a series of articles that will be run over the next 6 months. And so just to give you an idea of the topics that I've done so far with the Tribuna, which I'll duplicate with La Voz, we have had articles focused on the differences between paid leave and FMLA, qualifying reasons for leave, the different types of leave, eligibility, the expansive definition of family that we have here in the state, and upcoming in June will be information for sole proprietors. So starting in June with La Voz, I'll start that series over again to reach that particular audience. And this ad is just an example of the most recent ad that we run, that ran. And it is a similar sort of headline to our new billboards. It translates to the time that you deserve, the support that you earned. In terms of our event schedule, I'm not going to run through all these different events, but as you can see, we have been super busy out and about all over the place over the past couple of months. Just a couple of the, they've all been wonderful, but just a couple of the ones I'd like to highlight that were new for us and that we really felt like were a great collaboration. In March, we participated in a community baby shower with Lucinda's house that took place at CCSU. And that was a great way to reach expectant parents and parents of young children. We also had a wonderful partnership with Health Equity Solutions during Health Equity Week in April, where we did not only a webinar, but also tabling at a resource fair that they held. And then just last week, we
lost you. So we can see you, but we can't hear you.
Jessica, I'm taking a look on our end and you do have ability for speaking. I'm wondering if it might be the headset.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm trying to use a headset to minimize background noise, but I'm almost done. So hopefully you won't hear any background noise. And if you do, I do apologize. So the last thing I was mentioning on this slide is our recent participation in the CHRO resource fair that took place at the State Armory. That was great, not only for outreach to the community, but also really fabulous networking with other community groups and state agencies. So we have some great follow-up meetings set up for that. I also wanted to highlight a new project that Nancy and Nicole, the newest member of our outreach team, are working on, and it is going to be called 5 Minutes of Impact. The idea is to have short but powerful conversations with Connecticut community change makers. We're planning to launch this in June, and the idea behind this was, as Nicole in her role as community partnerships liaison is really going out and seeking to strengthen the partnerships we already have, but also establish new ones. We really wanted to have a way to collaborate and not just say, hey, how can we reach your audience, but also how can we help you? And what are the intersections between our work and the different individuals we're trying to reach? And we thought this would be a great way to really give access to our audience, but also to form those partnerships and really show the wider community how the work of these community organizations intersects with what we do. So you can see a list of some of the different topics and potential partners that we have coming up. And as this gets off the ground and launches, we'll certainly share the links so that you can check out the interviews. And then lastly, you heard Dave reference the Community Education Coordinator's new initiative. I just wanted to give an update on that. So we did issue our request for proposal on Monday. These are linked, so when you receive the slides, you can feel free to check it out if you'd like. We also issued a press release on Monday, and we are going to be holding a public information session this coming week on the 15th. There's a link to register there for any organizations that would like to join and ask questions, get clarification, etc. So our next steps here. Tomorrow we'll be interviewing our final few candidates for the grants and contract specialist that will oversee this program. So we hope to have that hire done by and onboarded hopefully by the end of the month or early June. And then we're also proactively reaching out to community organizations and sharing the press release and inviting them to view the RFP if they perhaps would be interested in submitting. And with that, sorry for the intermittent technical difficulties, but that concludes my presentation. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Jessica. Any questions for Jessica? Okay, thank you again. And why don't we move on, Maddie, to the quarterly legislative update, and congrats on the finishing of another session.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. You can see my screen, right? Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so I will provide just a quick update on our legislative work. As Alice just mentioned, the 2024 legislative session adjourned yesterday. I'm happy to share that our priority legislation, Senate Bill 222, now Public Act 24-5, passed the Senate in the House. Passed the Senate in late April and then the House last Thursday with bipartisan support, and it's now waiting on the governor's signature. Just a reminder, a few key components of the legislation include that it clarifies the definition of municipality in Connecticut paid leave and Connecticut FMLA, essentially as any entity with the ability to levy and collect taxes. It makes explicit employers' responsibilities regarding registering, remitting contributions, and submitting payment return files, something that we've already adopted by policy, but the existing law was pretty silent on. It also clarifies what other state or federal benefits will not require denial of Connecticut paid leave if they're received concurrently. It requires healthcare providers to display Connecticut paid leave information that will work as an outreach team to develop and distribute to healthcare providers. It also, let me change my slide. Okay. Additionally, it allows the authority to charge interest if an individual does not pay a penalty or repay overpayments in a timely manner. We're really excited about this change as well. It changes the date of our annual report from July 1st to September 1st, when we also have a financial report due. So it just kind of streamlines the reporting process for us. The legislation also establishes a procedure for tribes to participate in Connecticut paid leave, and it revises the Connecticut Family Violence Leave Act to include victims of sexual assault, which we know is really important, those last two components of the law. So with the exception of changing the date of our annual report, which took effect upon passage, all sections of the law are effective October 1st, 2024. So we're now working on implementation and some outreach strategies to really ensure that the entities that are affected by these changes are aware and kind of understand what the changes are and what they need to do. I also just wanted to flag that we monitored and provided testimony on several different bills this session, including in support of Senate Bill 220, which clarifies the process for when an appeal reaches Superior Court. This was a bill from the Department of Labor that we were happy to support. Makes an important clarification in our law. It passed the Senate a few weeks ago, and again, happy to report that it passed the House very late last night, pretty close to the deadline. So we're happy about that. This session, we also opposed Senate Bill 391, which was legislation similar to years past that would have expanded the responsibilities of the State Contracting Standards Board, passed the Senate with an amendment to remove quasi-public agencies from the bill, but it was not called for a vote in the House, so it didn't pass. Lastly, we also supported the passage of House Bill 5005, which is legislation to expand Connecticut's paid sick days law to cover most workers by 2027. We're now looking forward to, working with our partners to some outreach opportunities to really ensure that workers know and understand the differences between the two laws and how it really impacts them. So I'll have a full legislative report for the board within the next few weeks too, with additional bills that we were monitoring. I also just want to share that we're continuing to conduct a lot of, outreach to legislators. We send a monthly legislator newsletter. In February and March, our newsletter had open rates of over 93%, and then 80% open rate in April, which is really great. It means people are opening and ideally reading our emails. The first step is opening, which is great. We also continue to update a map that shows the number of claims by town, and we're really mindful of sharing that often with legislators so that they can see, how many people in their district are using our program. So far the map has been viewed over 6,000 times as well. As I mentioned too, we also continue to partner with legislators across the state, especially in districts or communities where more outreach might be needed. So next week we have a webinar coming up with Representative Dominique Johnson, and that's through Zoom, and it's next Thursday night. So we're excited about that. So that's all I have as well. So thanks.
Great. Questions from Maddie? Again, congrats. Never seen people so excited about a change in a reporting date, is it?
Yeah.
Happy. Thank you.
That's great. Okay, I'm gonna move us to committee reports. Mike, do you want to give them a recap of our policy and personnel meeting?
Sure, and good morning, everyone. Our committee met this month, and we reviewed the contribution rate setting process, and we received a legislative update. And that's the extent of our agenda.
Thanks, Mike. Jessica, do you want to add anything else for outreach and engagement in Molly's absence?
No, I shared much of the same information that you just saw.
Okay, great. And Holly, I know you guys have been heavily featured today, but do you want to give us a report from Finance and Audit?
Sure. We met last month and received the budget review and spending to date reports, which you'll hear in a little bit, as well as we reviewed the draft budget for this upcoming fiscal year 24-25, which you heard Dave walk through. And the committee also discussed the contribution rate and formula process. And Dave is going to take you through the financial reports that we saw at the last meeting.
That's great. All right, Dave, although I bet you can go fast because we've seen the projections.
I will provide the Reader's Digest version. So, but yes, so we've already provided projections, so I won't go knee deep into that. But we're talking about the financial results for the month of March. Okay. All right, let's go to the, I am not starting. Okay, here we go. So for March, for the operating budget for the month of March, we spent $1.2 million. That was slightly over budget in terms of spending by $40,000. That was primarily due to some timing differences we had. We paid 2 quarters of grievance adjudication expenses and 2 months for some IT consultant expenses that brought us up to date. The expenses for the month of March were the typical expenses: payroll and benefits, contact center, grievance adjudication, outreach. But year to date, spending is at $9.7 million, and we are over $2.8 million ahead of budget for expenses. Income less expenses, there is a negative variance for $1.5 million. But again, like I always say, that's just because we didn't transfer the $5 million in the first quarter of the fiscal year for the administrative fee, because we had the money in operating reserves. In terms of bond money, we spent almost $24,000 for the month on our fund recovery systems. Year to date, we spent $431,000. So we are $568,000 ahead of budget. There were no bond proceeds this year because we didn't get on the agenda for that. But again, as I've mentioned in the past, that's okay because we still have just under $2.4 million of bond money that's been authorized, but it's still remaining and outstanding. So we'll be using that in the coming months. Moving on to the contribution activity for the month of March, we had a negative $36.4 million of activity. That compares to the negative $32.6 million that we budgeted. So that is a negative almost $3.8 million variance. That's because March is one of those months where we had 5 weeks of benefits that we reimbursed to AFLEC instead of 4. So that results in the negative variance of $2.7 million. The 37 and almost $37.5 million that we paid averages out to $7.5 million a week. So that continues. Our running rate of benefits paying has been somewhat increasing as time goes on. So that is as high as it's ever been through the month of March. Although when I get to April in a second, we'll show that that's been even higher. As far as contributions, they were lower than budgeted for March by 2.1, but that was offset by our fund recovery efforts and our investment income. Having said all that, for March, year to date, we are $27.9 million ahead of budget in almost all categories, again, except for the contributions, but that's more than offset by the investment income. So no concerns there. The actual amount in the fund is just over $533 million as of the end of March. Total assets for the authority are over $552 million. And the biggest asset, of course, is the fund, and most of that sits in the short-term investment fund at over $520 million for that. Oh, hold on one second. I apologize profusely. Okay. Sorry about that. There was a statement that didn't show up, but now there it is. For the month of April, just as a preview, our operating expenses were just over $1 million. Typical categories, no big surprises there. I do want to point out that the benefits paid for the month of April were $30.2 million, and that averages out to $7.6 million a week. And in fact, over the past few weeks, we have had record-setting weeks in terms of the benefits that we're paying out. Just recently, we almost paid out $7.8 million in a week. So we are seeing that number tick up as a result of increased utilization of the program. So we are happy to see that people are aware of the program and using it. April is the month when contributions are ultimately due for the first quarter. So we got $137 million in. I'll have a more detailed analysis on that next month for the entire quarter. And investment income was $2.3 million. In terms of where we are by the end of the year, our operating budget will be $3.2 million ahead of budget in terms of expenses. In total, it's a negative $1 million, but again, that's because of the $5 million we didn't transfer. But basically, in total, we expect to be ahead of budget as the expenses we're spending were lower than what we budgeted. And contribution wise, we expect to be $61.7 million ahead of budget. Like I did mention, we just did get in the recent contribution history. We're working with our actuaries now to analyze that, as well as the benefits that are being paid. And so we will take a look at the current projection and update it as necessary for the end of the year. But having said all that, we still do expect to be ahead of budget by the end of the fiscal year. So that's where we are for the month of March and where we expect to be by the end of the year. Does anybody have any questions on that?
That's great, Dave. Thank you. That was definitely the Reader's Digest version. So please don't hesitate to ask questions if you got them. Okay. All right. We'll move on. Thank you so much, Dave.
Welcome.
Erin, love to turn it over to you to provide your CEO report.
Thank you so much, Alice. So as you've heard, we've been very busy. We're very excited about the Community Education Coordinators Initiative. Now that the RFP is posted, please go ahead and share that information with entities that you think might be interested in participating with us in that project. So when you see the materials, you can share that slide or you can check it out on our website. I just want to flag for you that at the June board meeting, we will be talking a great deal about the contribution rate setting process. It's something that finance has been working on for several months. Policy and personnel has been working on for a couple of months, bringing it all together for you in June. So please make every effort to attend the June board meeting, because I think it'll be important, and it should be, we clearly have time. We're starting this really, really early compared to previous years, but it's an important issue. So we really want to make sure that we give everyone the time and the space needed to discuss this issue. And that's it for me.
Any questions for Erin? Okay. Do we have any old business? Any new business? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Sorry, where did my second come from? Justin?
Ava.
Okay, great. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I wouldn't think so. The motion carries. Okay, so our meeting is adjourned at 10:02. Thank you all very much, and we look forward to seeing you in June.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.